Let's move to the UK now. You know the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved to intensive care in hospital after his coronavirus symptoms worsened. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says he was moved on the advice of his medical team and was receiving excellent care. So let's go live to the UK now. We speak to Oroyo Eubanks. Oroyo Eubanks is my own classmate from University of Westminster. Oroyo, it's good to have you.
Hello, Gifty. Hi, great to speak with you. Great job, great job.
So tell us, the last time I spoke to you before we came on air, you were in a queue to get some food. Is it that serious? Is that what the situation has become?
That is the situation across the country. Many people are queued up for essential items at supermarkets, at large markets across the country. It is part of the isolation measures that the government has put in place to ensure that social distancing measures are to. So you stand in queues for the supermarkets and allow large amounts of people in at the same time. But the queues move quite quickly, to be honest. I commend the staff supermarkets across the UK who are ensuring people can go in and get the essential items in a quick and timely.
Oroyo, I'm having a hard time hearing you from that connection on Skype. We may have to raise you back again, like we did with my previous resource person, Duduzile. We may have to come back to you, Oroyo, after this break. Welcome back to the show. We go back to the UK where Oroyo Eubanks is standing by for us. He's a resident in London, and like I was speaking to him earlier, the last time I spoke to him before we came on air, Oroyo, you had to be in a queue for food. So we didn't hear you earlier. Tell us again.
Apologies for that. Yes, I was in a queue to the supermarket, and I was saying that the queue wasn't very long, so thankfully I stayed outside for about 10 minutes, and it is part of the isolation measures put in place by the government to ensure that social distancing measures are adhered to, and for the supermarkets not to allow too many people inside at once. Right. So when I was inside, it was not very crowded, which is a good thing. There was maybe about 20 people shopping in this large supermarket and maybe the same amount outside waiting. So yeah, social distancing is really happening here in the UK.
Well, that's good. But let's come to the rather substantive issue that I wanted to talk to you about, which is about Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister. He's been taken into intensive care. What sort of talk goes on? Did people see this coming?
People did not see this coming. The Prime Minister first reported sick last week, and then he got tested, and he was confirmed to have the coronavirus. He was at home, under care of his doctors until on Sunday, when his situation got worse and symptoms became even more severe, that he was rushed to the hospital. Just about 7 p.m. on Sunday night. People didn't expect this coming because since last week, every day we were still getting updates from the Prime Minister from his home, of course, via FaceTime and small videos on Twitter and on Instagram. So he seemed to be in good health, just by the look of things. So for this to happen on Sunday night was shocking.
Someone else is deputizing for him, and in his speech he says that governors is going to go on, it's going to be business as usual. From where you sit, is that what's happening? Is it business as usual? I know it's just been a day or two since he's been away, but is it business as usual?
From what I've seen, it's business as usual. We have quite a number of the ministers of in the cabinet who have started to provide updates to the media. Michael Gove this morning was on media expressing, how the government is currently working. Dominic Raab, who the Prime Minister has asked to deputize for him in certain instances, have been chairing much of the cabinet meetings and making certain decisions. So it seems like there's a smooth flow, a smooth transition of duties. The Prime Minister was placed in ICU last night, but this morning we got reports that he's stable. So that's some positive news there that he's stable. So we're expecting that the recovery will hopefully be soon. He's under excellent care at the St. Thomas's Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the UK. So there's no doubt that there's some anxiety amongst the public, but also that his cabinet ministers are stepping up to the task and leading the country in this difficult time.
It's good to have you over here. Just before I let you go, I just want to find out about your housemate. How is he? Is he back?
Very good. He's back very well, back to working as normal. So too myself, we've done well in self-isolation, and I think have, for him, fully recovered, and for me, free of any symptoms of the coronavirus.
There's one thing, though, that keeps coming up for people who have had coronavirus, and it is the fact that people are beginning to be very uncomfortable around persons like that, to the point of stigmatization. Is that the case in the UK?
Not to a large extent, and to be honest, it's a frightening reality to deal with, and I think at first anyone would probably feel scared to be around someone that has coronavirus at first. And that is, of course, because of the hysteria that has been created about the virus in the media. But to a larger extent, I'm not seeing where people have been, coming out saying they've been discriminated or stigmatized against because of being infected with the virus. And I think maybe it helped a lot that so many celebrities have, come out to say, I have the virus, or now people we know in leadership positions are saying, I have the virus. So it's no class or creed. It's affecting everyone. And so I hope the stigmatization of the virus is on the low.
Well, you talk about hysteria in the media. I mean, you are a journalist. Of course, you're not practicing in London, but you are a journalist. Yeah. This is inevitable. The story as it's been told about coronavirus itself presents itself as a story that's inevitably fearful.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, but we also have a responsibility to allow the citizenry and those who are watching us, the public general, to be able to get the information and the facts, to know that even though this is a virus that's scary and the way it's transmitted is so easy and everyone can be infected, that it is not something that should be stigmatized.
Right.
And I think we need to do much more of that. I think we are rightly so speaking about the effects that it's been having on the wider population, the number of deaths, how fast it's spreading, but there's a lesser focus on the recovery rates, on how people are coping with the virus and how it's transmitted to prevent the stigmatization that is happening, especially in smaller developing countries.
Thank you very much, Roy. I'm glad to see that you're
welcome.
Good, and I'm happy to know that your friend is good as well. We'll keep praying for the Prime Minister, and we keep praying for all of us in the world. Roy Eubanks is a resident in London. He works with Chain of Hope, and he joined us with what's happening in London. I almost said China because that's where we're going next with this.